Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is the next nail-biting installment from the wonderful mind of Ed Smith. As ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. Why not hashtag Team Fear? And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story, entitled The Disappearances of Deep Fork River Bottoms. Episode 4, Howl in the Woods. Let's get straight into that. The steam of the laundry room rose up like vents from some volcano, and its noise was deafeningly loud, and the heat was appalling. And then the chemical smell was sometimes overwhelming. It was more like a dungeon in some overdone movie about Dante's Inferno. Mick heard a voice coming from behind him saying, Hey, sweet thing. I bet you didn't expect to see me so soon. What the fuck do you want, bud? Haha, I think you know what I'm here for. No, that ain't happening, man. Look, you're the freshest piece of ass on this cell block, buddy, and I put money down on you. Well, I think you need to go get your money back, bud. No, not really, Bud said sinisterly, as 7 other convicts appeared from out of the shadows of the laundry room. The group of 7, as well as Bud, jumped and grabbed Mick. Mick fought and struggled with every ounce of strength that he could muster as they pulled him into the janitorial mechanical closet. And while the fight continued, he felt that he was slammed down onto something. And when he realized what it was, that's when he got truly scared. He was laying stomach down on an old filthy mattress. And it was at this point that he felt fear like he had never felt before, a fight or flight for his safety, dignity, humility, and now self-respect had intensified. Punching and clawing, and then he felt his head being smashed into the floor, and then pulled back onto the mattress. Mick then felt that he was being held down by each arm and leg by 4 very large men, and then these men pulled off his prison PJs and shirt, and Mick yelled, No! And for Bud Wilkinson, a con that's in his 17th year of a 25-year prison sentence, this was not his first rodeo. As a guttural sound, ripping scream erupted from Mick's throat, Mick thrashed around in his bed, knocked the lamp off the nightstand in his bedroom. He sat up in bed, covered in sweat and almost hyperventilating. He looked around and then realized he was in his bedroom, in his brother's single wide trailer. He was holding his hand clenched in a fist up to his forehead, and he had tears in his eyes and was shaking from adrenaline rush that was withdrawing from him. He looked at the clock and it said 5:05 a.m. At that point, the door to the bedroom slid back and his brother Ronnie stepped into his room. Hey bro, you okay? I think so. Nightmare again? Yeah, bad one. Really bad. You want to talk about it? I got an hour before I gotta go work. Maybe later, bro. I don't know. I don't know if I could even talk about it. Well, that's cool, buddy. Hey, you want some coffee? Yeah, that'd be kick-ass, Ronnie. Thank you. Mick and his brother sat at the kitchen table and started talking about what Mick's next move was going to be. There's several places that I'm going to apply to today. They're close enough to walk to, he said. You need to relax before you go out there to these places. It won't help you to look so desperate, replied Ronnie. Yeah, starting over is a bitch. Well, we all got to start somewhere, Ronnie replied while stirring his cereal. Look, Ronnie, man, I appreciate all that you're doing and letting me live here after the halfway house said that I had finished my time. I knew Randy and Loren wouldn't let me stay at their places because I was an ex-con. I wouldn't have made it on the streets 2 days. Brother, if you hadn't let me stay here, I'd been back in lockup before I knew it. So, thank you. Thanks, brother. Hey, I don't agree with their shit, because you're our brother first and foremost. But they have their social image to protect, whatever it's worth. They should know better. We were all raised the same. You know, this trailer and my truck is all that I own, but they're just as much yours, bro. Thanks, Ronnie. You've always been on my side, man. Or at least you came to visit me. You even put some money on my books, and you went on my trial. I know I haven't made you proud, but I promise that I'll keep it between the lines and keep my ass out of trouble, said Mick. You're my little brother. You know, there was a couple of times, little brother, I didn't know if you were going to make it out there. Me too, bro. Me too. Look, brother, you need to go hunting. All that will relax you. It always did. With what, dude? I can't have a firearm. Felony, you know? No problem. Take my crossbow. Oh, yeah? Yeah, I get it. Cool. Great. I'll get it for you. Ronnie walked into the other bedroom and grabbed his crossbow and a quiver with about 15 bolts and his extra hunting knife. Hey, Ronnie, you won't need all of those bolts. Well, there are hogs back there too. Remember, dumbass? Oh, okay, cool. Sorry. I'm a little out of practice. Mick started to get dressed in his jeans and boots. Ronnie threw him an old camouflage shirt and a new can of Copenhagen tobacco. Hey, it's what you used to use when we went hunting, as he looked at the can. They both walked out into the back porch of the trailer. You see that fence line? The one that goes due west? And just stay on that direction, and about a half a mile, you run into a saloon. And there will be a bridge just south of you. At that point, cross the bridge. And then when you get to the power lines, go north until you hit a paved road that is turning to the west. You go east on the fire road, and that is the refuge. Keep going for about a quarter of a mile when you get to the second power line cut. That is some good hunting in there, bro. Okay, cool. Thanks, Ronnie, said Mick. Now listen, stay on the east side of the river, you understand? Don't get on the west side. Oh, Mick looked puzzled. There's some moonshiners and some drug growers and cookers down there on the west side. You stay away from them. Get left of center with them and you might not come back out of them woods. And remember, watch for the hogs and game wardens, how they ever go out there, added Ronnie. Okay, bro. I'll get on it right now. I want to get out there at dawn. You better get moving then, added Ronnie. Hey, Ronnie. Thanks, said Mick. Mick grabbed the crossbow and his other gear and off he went. He finally felt human as he walked through the morning dew-covered grass and seeing the mist coming off the water of small streams and ponds as he passed them. He made his way to the power lines and he caught some movement in the early light of the day. He walked north along the right-of-way clearing and to the paved road that made a turn to the east and the fire road that runs west. And this road was a one-lane, barely a trail, and was covered by tree canopy, almost resembling a tunnel. As he turned down the fire road, he caught movement again, down at the end of the road about 900 to 1,000 feet. It looked like a man had crossed the road, and he thought, okay, maybe another hunter or game warden. He stepped up a fire road and cut through the dense woods. The undergrowth was considerable, but he could find his way on one of the game trails and he knew he was moving in the right direction to get through to the second power line right of way. He was a little more than halfway to the power right of way when he heard a howling growl like he had never heard before, coming from the direction of where the possible hunter would be located. Mick was literally frozen in his footsteps, and to himself he whispered, "What the hell was that?" He has hunted these bottoms all of his life and has never heard anything like that. Mick stood there for about 15 minutes and was listening for any other sounds, and none ever came. Even the crickets were quiet. I was deathly silent. Mick felt that uneasiness you start feeling when you know something is about to go down, and there is nothing you can do about it. He kept hearing snaps and almost what he could call footfalls in the direction of the second power right of way. He decided to move parallel to the north of the clear-cut right-of-way area where he was hearing those noises. He moved for about 300 feet when he heard the growling howl again, only this time it was closer. He felt he was probably in the same section of woods that he is in. The fear of whatever this thing is was starting to get to him. Mick quickened his pace and was now nearing the edge of the second power right of way, and he stopped. He was looking south down the clear cut off the right of way, trying to see anything that he could associate with that howl. He saw nothing in the early light of the dawn. Noises of movement were coming from the trail that he was on as he was traversing through the northern wooded section of the area, and Mick thought, okay, if I go running down that clear cut, something could just cut me off and there would be nowhere to go. Or I could get to the riverbank and follow it to where he could get a clearing and get in the open. At least he could then see it coming, whatever it is. After all, he felt it was now pursuing him. He crossed the clear cut and entered the woods, and within 15 minutes he was standing on the river bank. The river was low, and in this area you could walk across and be only 3 to 4 feet of water. He began to move south along the river bank. Mick had moved about 1,000 feet, almost to where he could cross the woods from the river to the fire road, when he heard a tree branch snap from behind him. He turned to look, and when he saw something dive behind a tree, it was just a shadow, but it was big and black. He pulled a crossbow from his back and charged it and loaded a bolt. "God fucking help me. I don't know what the hell that is," he said out aloud. The gut-wrenching feeling of fear took hold, just like that day in the lock-up laundry room. He began sweating and breathing like a sprinting horse. He stood still, looking for any motion. There was none. Whatever it was is probably looking at him and frozen, just like he is. Man, if he had a shotgun, he could rattle that wood line and flush it out. At least he would know what he was dealing with. He said with fear and frustration, "What is it?" I was just then he bolted and ran towards the clearing at a pace that he never knew he could do. As he broke into the clear cut, and then as he entered the fire road, where, after he ran about 300 feet, he spun, and to his terror, he saw that he was being followed. When it broke out the wood line and stepped into the clearing, it stood erect on 2 legs. The thing bristled with black hair. The waist was thin and the legs were muscular, but they were bent like those of a dog. The torso and shoulders were thick and wide, almost unnaturally wide. The arms were massive and long, almost to the knee. The head was set on large shoulders and it had a snout of a dog. The ears stood pointed on its head. It had a crest of high bristled up hair, almost like that of a mohawk. The teeth were white, almost bright and sharp. But the eyes were the linchpin of what turned the pit of his stomach. They were green in the light of the morning sun. I looked at him, and then it seemed to smile at him. He raised the crossbow at its range. It would have set a record. He sighted the crossbow and unleashed it. The bolt took flight and gracefully arced through the air and struck the target in the right shoulder. The beast screamed and roared, and it stared at him with what seemed to be laser beams for eyes. He charged the bow and loaded another bolt as the thing was stepping towards him. He then raised the crossbow again, and it roared. He unleashed the bolt, and it found the mark in the left thigh of the beast. The thing stopped, roared, and then lunged forward. Mick turned and ran with all of his strength that he could muster as he slid the crossbow around his back. He heard the thing running behind him, but he didn't look back. He just kicked harder and harder, running in his snake boots. The footfalls were loud and heavy, and then, when he thought he could hear it almost on him, he turned, now expecting to be in a fight for his life, and it was gone. He heard the brush popping on his left and then on his right, and he turned again and ran like he never had. And there were 2 of them. He didn't see the second, but he just knew there were 2. He ran up to the first little pond, about halfway back to his brother's trailer. He stopped and was so winded that he couldn't stand. He fell to the ground and cried like a baby. He hasn't felt this kind of emotional pain since lockup. He looked back and nothing was following him. And sometime between the tree line and this point, he'd shit his pants. The fear was so intense, his stomach was in knots and rolling, and then he vomited. After about 20 minutes on the ground losing it, he pulled himself together and up to his feet and walked back to the trailer, crossbow and Stink in tow. Mick got back to the trailer. He walked up to the back porch and stripped. It was cold, but he took a redneck shower with a water hose and then hopped into the bathroom shower. And when he got out of the shower, he seed himself in the mirror, an image he doesn't really see much of these days. You see, when you've been through what he had been through, it's sometimes hard to look at yourself as much of a man. He looks down away from the mirror and takes a breath, and then gets dressed and waits for his brother to get home. He opens the door to the fridge and goes to grab a beer, stops and takes a pause, and then sets it back in the refrigerator and makes him some coffee. Mick then heard Ronnie's truck pull up and the truck door slam, and Ronnie opened the door and walked in and said, "Honey, I'm home." Damn, it was a hell of a day. And Mick looked at Ronnie and said nothing. "What's wrong with you? Did you have another nightmare?" Sort of. What is it?" "Brother, have you ever been back there and seen anything weird?" What do you mean weird?" "I was back there today and, I seen something." "Okay, what?" "If I wasn't high and drunk, I would have said I'd seen a werewolf." "A werewolf? You been drinking?" "You're not on that fucking shit again, are you?" he said, concerned and angrily. "Ronnie, brother, I'm sober as the nose on your face." "A werewolf? Really?" "I know it sounds crazy, but it scared me so bad I shit my pants." "Oh, come on, Mick. I've had a rough day. Dude, stop fucking with me." Mick then gets up, grabs Ronnie's right hand and led him out the front door and showed him his shit-filled pants. "You see, Ronnie? I wish I wasn't sober. I would explain it." "Okay, where did you see this?" "In the second clear-cut power right away, about 1,200 feet north of the fire road," he replied. "Oh, shit. Oh, it's going to be dark in less than half an hour. Let's go back in there in the morning." "I can't go back in the morning. I have to meet with my P.O. "All right. Parole officer day, and I'll just wait till you get back." "Okay, great. Ronnie, I didn't think I was going to make it out of there. And there's one other thing." "You are fucking with me." "No, Ronnie. There's more than one." "Okay, there's more than one. You're not making this easy, brother." "Ronnie, I hadn't been that scared since lockup. At least in there I knew what I was dealing with. I can't even tell you what it was. I wish I could." Ronnie went to his room and about 30 minutes later came out showered and with his gym shorts on. "Mick, get your gym shorts on and we're going to work out." "Okay, give me a second," replied Mick. They went to the gym, and after about an hour and a half they were on their way home and they stopped at Deb's fill-in station and grabbed a salad bar to go. "Thanks for the salad, Ronnie. I'll catch you all up when I get it together." Little bro, just stay between the lines. That's payment enough for me." "I'm not lying, brother. I saw a werewolf." "Whew, it's just hard to believe. Can't tell you how many times I've been back there and I hadn't seen a werewolf or anything like that. It's not an easy pill to swallow, dude." "I know, brother. You know, there's a lot of things I don't want to believe that can happen to you, but in this world, they do." "Do you need to go talk to somebody about whatever is going on?" "And say what? I'm piss-poor excuse for a man that can barely acknowledge that I'm interested in women anymore? Fuck, man. What am I supposed to do?" "Ronnie, talk to me." I can't. I can't. Damn it, Mick. I know you had to do some things in lockup that you're not proud of. I know you got passed around. I know they made you a bitch in there. But it doesn't mean that you're any less of a man." "Wait a minute. How the hell did you know?" "Well, Remember the pool party? The one where we went to over at my friend Donna's house? We were all over at that place half naked and sometimes naked. I remember it was a lot of fun. And Mick replied, yeah. Well, Donna's friend, Laurie, her brother did time in Riverside, just like you, and he has those double lightning bolts on his lower back too. She told Donna, and Donna told me what it meant, so, yeah. I know you were passed around by a gang and its members, and that you did it for their profit too. Man, I didn't even want you to know about that. Oh, fuck. Damn it. Look, brother, you are still a man and you're still my brother, and you always will be. I think you really need to talk to somebody about this. Now let's get in the house and eat. I'm frickin' starving. Thanks, man. I thought you'd be completely different about this. It's okay. If you can't get hired at any of these places around here, you can set up on the curb out here in front of the trailer. Oh, when we get a curb. Fuck you. Doing it for the coin, baby. Brother, I love you. Back at ya. Jeez. They both went into the trailer and had dinner, brother to brother, during the night. Mick laid in his bed going over every step of what he did out in the bottoms, retracing his actions, and so he could tell his brother tomorrow when they went into the bottoms. When suddenly Mick saw a shadow move across his bedroom transom window. It was the transom window that faces the backyard, and the window is at least 10 feet over the ground. Well, he sat up fast, and the shadow moved back in front of the window, and it stopped. And then he could see the green eyes and the breath of the beast as it fogged the window. He could hear it breathing. It was looking right at him. Mick screamed, "Holy fuck! Holy fuck!" As he pushed himself off the bed hard up against the wall. The beast bared its teeth, and then the bedroom door slammed open. Are you having another fucking nightmare? It's outside! Outside! What the fuck's outside? The werewolf! Oh man, Mick, I have to be up in 6 hours. Ronnie, it's outside, I swear, he said in tears. The look on Mick's face was very telling, and so was the smell. Mick had shit his underwear again. Please, Ronnie, I'm not lying, as he broke down into tears. Ronnie knelt down and put his hand on Mick's chin and looked at Mick in the eye. Let's get you cleaned up and then we'll take a look outside. Mick nodded yes. Mick showered and dried quickly, and Ronnie went to get his gun safe and pulled out a CZ Scorpion Evo 3 9mm semi-automatic submachine gun, slammed a 30-round magazine loaded with 115 grain jacketed hollow points into the well, and a 1911 large frame 45 caliber pistol, and stuck it in his gun belt and put it over his boxers, jammed his feet into his work boots, and just then Mick came in and said, I'm ready, bro. Nope, not yet. Ronnie handed Mick his Mossberg 500 12-gauge shotgun that Ronnie keeps loaded with double buckshot and rifled slugs, and said, Now you're ready, let's go. The brothers walked out onto the back porch, and Ronnie clicked his tactical flashlight mounted on the side of his CZ, and Mick clicked his flashlight on that was mounted on his shotgun. Ronnie looked at Mick and said, Let's go hunting. And they moved around the trailer together, just like when they were younger and out on a hunt. They cleared the yard and Ronnie said, Let's look under your window. As they approached the window, they heard a screaming howl coming from the bottoms, over 3/4 of a mile away. Damn! Yeah, damn! Don't get smart. Sorry. They got to the window area, and the window was at least 10 feet from the ground, and in the crisp, white light of Ronnie's flashlight, there it was, 2 paw prints. Holy fuck! You see? I told you. That print is about 10 inches wide. They're real, Ronnie. Yeah, but why? Why are they coming up around here now? That's what I need to figure out. Well, what? As Ronnie turned to Mick. I might have shot at it with your crossbow. And you're just telling me now? Hey, you wasn't believing me. You didn't believe that I saw a werewolf. How was you going to believe me shooting it? You realise if this is a predator animal, it now knows where you live. I can't believe I'm standing out here, half-assed naked, arguing for a werewolf. Alright, let's get inside. Okay, look bro, I shot it twice and it left me alone. No it didn't. It chased you and that's what you told me. I was after you. Those were your words. Okay, what time is your ride to your parole officer supposed to be? 6 in the morning. Alright, you go to the meeting and then we will go down to the bottoms. Okay? Yeah bro, okay. They both went in and got about 4 hours sleep. Ronnie heard Mick getting up and ready for his appointment. Then Mick poked his head through the sliding door to Ronnie's bedroom. Ronnie, I'm leaving. Remember, Bubba, don't go without me. Yeah, okay. Ronnie said as he rolled over and went back to sleep. Ronnie had already texted his boss and said he needed a sick day, and the boss already gave it thumbs up. About an hour later, Ronnie woke up and decided that he wasn't going to wait for Mick, and he was going to scout the section of woods closest to the trailer. But he was going to wait for Mick before going into the deep woods. He caught a shower and some breakfast with a half a pot of coffee and got dressed, and he decided not to wear his snake boots and just wear his work boots where they were most comfortable. He went to his gun safe and pulled his CZ Scorpion, Evo 3 and 6 30-round magazines loaded with 9mm hollow points, reached in and grabbed his suppressor, and using his muzzle brake wrench, turned the brake and screwed it off the barrel, and then screwed the suppressor onto the barrel, just in case the game warden showed up and he had to hide. His vest and gun belt were several pouches on it, and then he decided that, just for giggles, he would pack his Panzer B12 12-gauge shotgun with a 10-round magazine. It would be appropriate with a double-aught buckshot slugs, for added motivation. He pulled the 1911 .45 caliber pistol and holstered it with 4 magazines. This thing had come up to his trailer, his home, and that will not stand. Before he left, he wrote a note to Mick telling him where he went and that he would be back soon, and that he should be ready to go when he returned. He walked out to his back porch and took some breaths and started off to the Deep Fork river bottoms. Mick finished his meeting with a parole officer, and after getting his butt chewed on for not having a job yet, he called his brother's trailer phone and got no answer. He then called his brother's cell phone and still no answer. After about 2 hours or so, he called a ride back to the trailer, and by this time it was about 4 p.m. and the weather was starting to kick up, as it had been all late morning and getting worse in the afternoon. The lightning was really bad in this series of storms, and the thunder was loud, and rattled the windows and sounded like bombing raids from several wars. He got back to the trailer and walked in and called out to his brother, but yet again, no answer. He looked on the table and found Ronnie's note and read it. Damn him! Mick started getting ready. He went to the gun safe and saw that at least Ronnie went armed. He pulled Ronnie's AR-15 pistol and 300 blackout, and then he grabbed all 9 magazines, and Mick pulled Ronnie's .38 revolver as his backup. And he thought to himself, man, I hope he's okay. Mick started off to the bottoms, and it was lightly raining, but the big rains were just skirting the area, but the lightning was everywhere. It hadn't been this bad in several, maybe 8 years. He reached the refuge fence and hopped over it. He had seen Ronnie's boot prints there, and there was no mistaking the Red Wing boot prints, and they were heading off north. He travelled about 1,200 feet, and it looked like Ronnie tore off through the woods. Man, bro was moving. He started following Ronnie's boot prints through the woods, and then he saw what he feared. A 9-inch wide paw print, the same kind of print Ronnie and him had seen outside the trailer last night, trailing behind his brother's prints. Oh fuck, it's following him. He continued to follow the trail when the rain began to fall, and soon it was a torrent of rain. The trail of prints soon dissolved into mud and water as the saturated soil of the bottoms started to become a mud bog. Mick decided to make for higher ground and try and skirt the lowest areas. It was like being inside a dishwasher. The wind was whipping trees and rain fell in sheets, moving sideways. Mick trudged on. As he moved through the woods, he was blinded by the rain and wind, but the sense of being watched never left him. He would later recount in an internet radio show interview that while he was walking back through the undergrowth in the driving rain and wind, that there were shapes that he could not recognize at the time, but he felt that the beasts were not that far from his path. Soon the realization that he is not even making a difference set in, and he called out for Ronnie, but over the noise of the storms, no one could hear him. He started back to the trailer. He was crying as he stepped up on the back porch where Ronnie Snakeboots was sitting. "Where the fuck are you, brother?" he said out loud to himself. He went in the trailer and put up his weapons, locked the gun safe and dried his face and head, took off his shirt but kept his soaked jeans and boots on, picked up the phone and then dialed 911. He explained the situation, minus the werewolf. They said Ronnie was hunting and was now missing. The search team was on scene in about 4 hours, but the storms were filling up the bottoms. "Look, we're going to keep trying with the people we have, but if he should hold up in those bottoms, we can't get to him. Then we may have to hello him out, but we have to find him first. The river is set to crest 32 feet above flood stage from the right now to noon tomorrow, because of all the rain upstream and now all the rain downstream." The flood of the bottoms intensified. Farmland was inundated that had never been, and barns once thought safe from floods were swept to the ground. Same for some homes. The flood was now outside the bounds of the known and calculated flood plains. It was a flood that was reaching a 500-year, probably for floods. Any and all possible evidence and scent trails and even physical remains of Ronnie were swept from the land. The torrents of rain were biblical. The storms were lined up one after the other, and after the other. A full-on train of thunderstorms over days. Mick hung around each search command all day and never leaving once, hoping for any word, anything that he might hold on to. Randy and Loren, Ronnie and Mick's brother and sister, never once bothered to return Mick's phone calls and texts about the status of Ronnie missing person case. The rain ended, but the flooding worsened, and there were areas flooding that hadn't flooded in 90 years. After an exhaustive search for 5 days, the search was called off and Ronnie was listed as a missing, presumed dead. Eventually, the flood waters receded and the landscape of the bottoms changed tremendously. The bottoms to most who knew them well would be unrecognizable. The river channel even shifted and some of the winding loops were cut off and naturally dammed off, creating arching ponds and small lakes. And while these changes occurred, the bottoms had always had a While these changes occurred, the bottom has a way of remembering secrets from the past and bring them into the future. The floods unearthed and excavated areas of limestone outcropping that revealed cave openings and would eventually become a focus of wildlife activity. Mick returned from the memorial service 1 week later, and there was a black SUV sitting out front of the trailer. As he walked up, several men in suits and ties got out, and one of them asked, "Are you Andrew Michael Palmer?" "Yeah, but I go by Mick." "Okay, Mick. I'm Robert Cutler. I'm your brother's attorney." "I didn't know he had an attorney." "Well, since he's been declared legally deceased, it falls upon me to execute his trust and his will, and it will just take a few minutes." Mick asks them into the trailer, and they sit down at the table. The attorney pulls out some papers and starts. "Your brother wanted you to have this." He handed Mick an envelope that was sealed. "Now your brother, also by decree of the will, has placed his truck and his trailer into a trust, which you are the beneficiary of. He also placed a life insurance policy in that trust, and it will be processed in a few weeks, in the amount of $350,000, and my fees have already been provided for, so you have no attorney fees to pay. This concludes our business. Everything else is covered in the letter. If you have any questions, here's my card, and again, I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming out here and letting me know." "Oh, There's one more thing. An attorney by the name of James Watson will be contacting you and getting some, if not all, of your criminal record expunged. His primary fee has been covered. However, there may be other fees you might have to cover, but they should be less than $1,000. If it's more than that, call me. This is a lot to take in. I know. I just sit down and take a breath and read the letter. Good day and good luck to you, son. They shook hands and Mick walked them out. He came back into the kitchen and looked at the envelope and really didn't know if he was ready to open it. He picked it up and broke the seal and pulled the folded letter out, unfolded it and read it. The letter starts. Hey little brother, if you're reading this then you've already been to my funeral. I don't know how I went out, but apparently I lost the fight this time. I feel that you and I have always been true to our roots and how we were raised. We understand the ground that we were raised on. I hope you can get a new start with what I've left behind, and just stay between the lines and be true to yourself. And the important thing is that you don't give up on yourself. No one understands you better than the man that's looking back at you in the mirror. Stand up and let your manhood show. Okay, well, maybe just keep your pants on, but you know what I mean. I love you. Your big brother. Letter ends. He didn't know if the tears coming down his face was because of the grief or his pride for having a brother such as Ronnie. But there is one thing that he does know. Now that the floodwater is down, he is going into those bottoms and he is going to find some answers. 13 days earlier. Ronnie was approaching the small pond that is about halfway in between his trailer and the woodline when he notices some movement in the woodline almost at his 12 o'clock. He didn't see what it was just a flash, but the tree limbs were moving and there was not only wind to account for it. He proceeded to the woodline where he caught the scent of a musky, wet, furry smell. He walked north and just outside the woodline for about 1,200 feet when he came upon the fire road. Ronnie had been here many times before, and today, this morning, he'd actually felt uneasy, like a feeling that something was watching him, something just out of sight. Ronnie turned to walk down the fire road when the feeling of being watched intensified and it became almost overpowering. His right hand reached around his side and removed the barrel of his shotgun from the barrel loop on his 511 utility pants. He brought the BP-12 up to the ready position and pulled the charging handle and let the bolt pound forward. He thought, okay, now we're ready. And he slowed his pace on the fire road, stopping occasionally to listen to the sounds of the woods. He could hear the rustling to the left of him when it sounded heavy. Just then, 3 large wild hogs ran out of the woods, crossed the fire road, and drove headlong with a force into the woods. They were only 20 feet in front of him, and not one looked at him. Well, that was weird, he thought. It happened so fast. Ronnie drew down on the hogs, but he didn't fire. He was being cautious because he felt something was pushing them. He stopped in the middle of the fire road and gave pause to the possibility of returning to his trailer and waiting for Mick. But he was already in the refuge, and whatever was moving in this section was already probably aware of his presence. The feeling of being out of place or maybe an intruder in the presence of something vicious and unknown came over him. He tried to use reason and logic, but it always came up just to this side of strange and unnatural. Ronnie resumed his pace down the fire road and he was walking in a tight rut. He started seeing trees maybe 2 or 3 inches in diameter, pulled over in arches next to the road. He walked off a fire road into the arches that were created in these trees, and then he saw something that he just could not explain. Some of these trees must have been pulled over, and then these large rocks, or some of them had larger logs laid upon them to hold them down. Most of the trees were bent with the tops to the river. Ronnie moved to the other side of the bent tree area, and then he'd seen a large area of dirt disturbed, like there had been some kind of fight. The dirt was ripped up and the vegetation as well, and some of the trees were bent over and broken, along with others that were just ripped out of the ground. And then he observed multiple tracks. Some looked like a big dog had made the tracks, and others were like that of bare feet, but were large, like 15 inches or bigger. And then there was the blood splattered on the trees and trunks and the undergrowth. The tracks led off in all directions, and some of the trails leading away from this area seemed to have something being dragged over the ground. And then there was the stench. Musky old wet dog with a rotten meat body odour. Oh, it was putrid. And it was at this point that Ronnie decided that he was in, way over his head, and he was going to return to his trailer and wait for Mick and then call about 12 of his friends. As he walked back towards the fire road, he happened to glance up in a tree, a large oak that was probably about 60 inches in diameter. He walked by it when he went to look at the bent tree area, but now he could see something up in the branches of the tree canopy. It was what he could only call part of a large wild hog, and part of it was missing, like it had been eaten on. "Alright, you crazy redneck, it's time to get the fuck out of here," he said to himself. When he stepped out of the fire road, he looked back towards the direction he walked in on, and his eyes gazed upon what he could only call a large, really large, German Shepherd. But there was something odd about this dog. It just wasn't only big, but it had a sense about it. Something dark is the only thing that Ronnie could label it. But what it did next made Ronnie a believer in being in the presence of something great and unknown. The dog that was on 4 legs, like any other dog, was beginning to stand. He heard what he could call bones cracking and joints popping as it stood erect. He could see it had wide shoulders and its muscular upper body and a thin waist of the typical bodybuilder. The legs were a wonder of animal physical mechanics. They were in essence of a large representation of dogs' hind legs, and the head of the creature was that of a large wolf on steroids. Ears stood up pointed, and the teeth were uniformly sharp and meant for chewing and ripping. But even at this distance of over 600 feet, he could see the cold stone gaze of the beast. The beast began to slowly walk towards him, with its pace increasing with every step and stride. Ronnie's fight or flight instinct kicked in, and he turned and ran down Fire Road to the first clear cut, and then he turned up the clear cut and he could hear the beast's footfalls and its growling huff. Before the beast broke into the clear cut, Ronnie cut off the clear cut and was running towards the river. And before the beast was able to see him in the clear cut, he could hear the beast stomping and sniffing to find a scent trace, so it could continue its pursuit. And finally, as Ronnie was well into the section of woods that laid in between the 2 clear-cut power lines right of ways, then he could hear it. The beast was entering the wood line from the clear cut, following his scent. Ronnie hunkered down behind a sizable tree trunk, which was about 15, maybe 18 inches in diameter, so he could get several good shots off from his shotgun with his slugs, before it would become pretty sporty. Then, something about this tree didn't seem normal. He looked up, and to his shock and surprise, it looked like this tree was upside down, and with its roots to the sky. At about that time, the beast was entering the clearing. He heard it roar and take a step at him when another form, almost like a big man with brown to reddish hair, charged into the clearing and grabbed a large dog-like creature and what could only be called a body check in a large tree trunk, causing the tree to lean about 20% angle. The 2 large beasts began an all-out brawl, blood, fur, hair, and teeth. And Ronnie is just sitting there, trying to process the sight, and is transfixed by the exhibition of nature's force. As the brawl intensified, he slipped out of the clearing, and while he could, and would have liked to have stayed and watched the outcome, this old country boy's ass needed to move. Ronnie ran towards the river, and once he made it to the river, the battle of nature's wonder was still underway. He ran about 300 feet south along the bank of the river, and the river was really low at this time of the year. But that could work to his disadvantage as well as to his advantage. He wanted to skirt all of this section of the woods, but not at the risk of getting on the west side of the river. He got caught over there once, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. Ronnie walked another 400 feet, and then he seen some bushes move, and then a beast stood up and was all of 9 feet. I was less than 100 feet from him, off to his left. He raised his shotgun and said, "Okay, time to dance, motherfucker," he yelled at the beast. As Ronnie unleashed a barrage of 10 rounds and double-aught and rifled slugs at this fucking thing, the BP-12 bolt locked back and he pulled the magazine and dropped it, and loaded another 10-rounder magazine and dropped the bolt forward and unleashed another barrage as he advanced towards the thing. The beast was overwhelmed by the wail of steel that was unleashed upon it. Chunks of flesh missing and blood from several wounds as it bolted away from the river, tripping and holding its chest as it did so. "Yeah, you might want to think about that, motherfucker," Ronnie yelled in complete defiance. Another beast, somewhat larger by about 1 foot taller, stood up at his 10 o'clock position. As he adjusted his shotgun barrel to its direction, a second one stood up to his 2 o'clock position. "Fuck me!" Ronnie screamed. As Ronnie bursted brush on his way to the river, he could hear the beast maneuvering behind him. When he jumped down the steep slope off the bank, and he was almost to the bottom, when he stopped his descent and pointed his shotgun almost vertical to the edge of the bank above him. The head of the beast appeared over the edge of the bank. As it looked out into the river, Ronnie fired 5 rounds of buckshot and slugs into the bottom of the beast's chin and throat, apparently killing it instantly. He breathed a little easier until a shadow passed over him and he heard a splash in the river some 150 feet from him. As the beast jumped from the bank and landed in the water, he jumped about 2 feet down to the surface of the water, and then he was standing in about 3 feet of water. He then took off heading south on the riverbed, and he was moving like he knew his mother would want him to. He moved into an area of the riverbed that had a massive amount of large trees piled up, and they were interlocked, and, well, they created an effective logjam that he could get under for cover and security, or he'll deal with the water moccasins. He was not going to be an easy meal for this beast. The thing jumped onto the logs as it tried to figure out where he had located himself in the matrix of the tree trunks. The shotgun blast created a real problem for the beast, as it suffered several major injuries from Ronnie, who could choose his shots. Now there were several close calls for Ronnie, as the beast would reach deep into the pile and give Ronnie cause for concern. But a blast of the 12 gauge continually changed its mind, and one of the gun blasts ripped through its thorax, and this injury caused the beast to jump from the tree trunk pile and run upstream in the riverbed. And finally, Ronnie could breathe easy, even though he had several water moccasins crawl across him. Slowly and surely, Ronnie climbed out of the pile and checked himself and his gear, then took a slow turning look at his location. He was in a section of river that had high river banks, 50 or 60 feet in most areas. Scaling them would be tough, and well, if you'd have one of those things after you, then you'd have a problem. He travelled downstream for a bit and was looking intently for a way out of this position. He kept checking the east bank behind him, and then he saw a way up out of the riverbed, where it put him on the west bank. Negotiating with pissed off moonshiners or drug growers is not his strong suit, but it's the lesser of the two evils. Ronnie scaled the 60-foot bank and stopped to listen to his surroundings about halfway up, then continued to the top of the bank. He stood on the west bank and looked up and down the riverbed and along the bank and could see nothing out of the ordinary. As he began to walk south, after about 600 feet, he had seen nothing that would allow him to get off this bank and up on the other side. "Fuck, man, I don't want to stay on this side for very long," he exclaimed in a low voice. He was very concerned about the moonshiners. He had run into them before and they were adamant about him steering clear of their turf. He proceeded another 400 feet and then thought he might be able to slide down this slope without breaking anything. He heard a twig snap and he turned quickly, and the beast was less than 20 feet from him. He snapped his shotgun up and pounded out 10 rounds of double-aught buckshot and slugs into the beast's chest. It howled in pain and angry agony as it fell from its feet. He turned and ran at full speed through the trees and undergrowth. As he ran for 200 feet more, he saw another beast crawling up the bank and was about halfway up, and so he pointed his shotgun and pulled the trigger, dead. "Oh shit, fucker!" he yelled. He then continued to run, and he heard the beast top the bank and the movement of the brush and tree limbs as it was pursuing him. Ronnie was now tiring and approaching total exhaustion. Somehow, he was able to open a gap between him and the pursuing beast, and when he busted through the undergrowth, he ran straight into 5 moonshiners, all with shotguns pointed at him. "Oh, Jesus! Look, there's something chasing me." "Yeah, so?" "What the fuck are you doing over here, boy?" Look, I just want to get out of here, out of these bottoms. Hey guys, this thing is right behind me." "Yeah, we know it's there, but it won't bother us. It might eat you, but it won't mess with us." "Hey, I don't care about whatever you're doing. I just want to get back home." "Hey, brother, didn't we run this motherfucker off before?" He does look similar. "You know, we might be able to help you out, sunshine. Now, if you agreed to entertain us for a while, I think it could work out, baby." "I think you know what he means, sweetness, don't you?" As the moonshiner approached Ronnie with his hand on his crotch. "Yeah, sure." About that time, the beast burst through the undergrowth about 30 feet away from Ronnie. The moonshiners swung their shotguns in the direction of the beast, and they unloaded it. In the ensuing gun battle with the beast, Ronnie broke away down the bankside trail. He heard more gunshots and screams, and now that the moonshiners were providing entertainment to the beast. Ronnie ran with his last bit of power for about 500 feet, and then finally collapsed, pushed himself up against a large tree, and started checking magazines for his 12-gauge. He was only able to scrounge 9 rounds out of the magazines. He consolidated them into one and loaded a magazine into the well. He had caught his breath. This is where getting to the gym on regular pays off, he thought. Ronnie then got to his feet, collected his thoughts, and tried to calm himself down. He put the shotgun barrel into the barrel loop on his pants and brought forward a CZ Scorpion. He pulled the charging handle and took off down the trail for another 400 feet or so. He has to find a way across the river and up onto the other bank, and it needs to happen soon and quick. He moved further down the riverbank and then he'd seen what looked like a burrow on the side of the riverbank. It was high up on the other side of the riverbanks, and the banks in this area were at least 70 to 80 feet, and his burrow was maybe 15 feet from the top of the bank. He spotted a fairly traversable way down the riverbed, and he decided to move. As he was traversing his way down the bank, he was about 20 feet from the riverbed when he heard the heavy footsteps moving on the top of the riverbank. He froze, pulled himself in close to the bank, as to try and conceal his position. The footfalls seemed to stop, and then continued on down further the riverbank. He slid down the rest of the bank and entered the water, which was only about 2 feet deep, and he quietly crossed the riverbed by moving slowly as not to slush the water too much. He then reached the east bank and began to scour the pathway up to the dugout burrow. He pulled his pistol before he peeked over the edge of the opening of the burrow and pointed it into the darkness. The burrow extended back deeper into the bank, a lot further than he had realized. He got up into the opening of the burrow and took his flashlight and illuminated the burrow. It went back about 90 feet and then split and went into 2, maybe 3 different directions. It was large enough for him to stand in with only a little bit of crouch, and the stench was overwhelming. As he was lighting up the burrow, he noticed a set of eyes reflected back, and they were narrowly spaced, only about 1.5 feet from the floor of the burrow. And then there were 3 sets, then 5, then 9 sets, and they were all moving back and forth and up and down. And then it registered with him. This is their den, and those are their pups. By the time he came to this realization, the mother beast was rising up behind him. She bit down onto his left shoulder, and he screamed in pain and torturous agony. As she shook him back and forth, he put the barrel of the .45 pistol against the nose of the beast's snout and pulled the trigger 5 times. The beast let loose of Ronnie's shoulder, and it fell backwards and down the bank, landing with a thunderous splash as it flared around violently in the water trying to regain its footing. Ronnie was bleeding profusely and lost his footing and fell down the bank about 55 feet, sliding and rolling down into the water, where the beast lay motionless. Getting to his feet, moving only on adrenaline, Ronnie was battling blood loss and exhaustion. He was moving down the river again in a downstream direction. After about 200 feet or so, he stopped to try and stop the blood flow. He was able to achieve this by pulling a quick clot gauze from his first aid pouch and pushing it into the holes that were ripped into his flesh, on the front of his chest and the puncture holes on his back, and he drank the water from his camelback, which was not punctured by the beast's teeth. His breathing was laboured. One of the canine's teeth barely penetrated the lung, and he began walking at a moderate pace. His left arm still worked, but he had several cracked bones in his shoulder, and it's going to be a bitch using it to climb out of the riverbed. If he could stick to the east bank and walk another 1.25 miles, then he could just walk up the boat ramp at the sewage treatment plant. He felt he could make it if he didn't run into any more of those things. Ronnie walked another 200 feet when he felt that he was being watched, and a heavy sense of uneasiness came over him. It was like he took another step that doom would descend upon him. As he struggled to control his fear, a beast stepped out into the riverbed path he was walking on, and only 20 feet away, and faced him. It looked at him with hate-filled eyes that penetrated his soul. "What do you want with me?" Ronnie yelled at the beast.
"I want you to die. I want to eat your brother,"
it said in a low, grumbling voice, as it stared into his eyes. "Well, I may die, but you're gonna pay for it, fucker." Ronnie snapped up his CZ Scorpion and unleashed a long volley of 9mm hollow points at the beast's chest. Several rounds impacted, but the beast bounded to the right and left and then ducked behind some large trees and began to circle Ronnie as it scoured the bank up and into the trees and undergrowth along the sloping banks. When the beast was visible, Ronnie blasted the target. It continued to circle, making noises and throwing limbs and rocks as it circled. Ronnie moved in the direction that he was originally travelling, because the beast was practically behind him. The beast roared when it realised that Ronnie was still outmanoeuvring it. He began to run. He could not fight his flight or fight response any longer. It may have been the wrong thing to do in this situation, but the fear was palpable, and the majority overwhelming. It was the kind of fear that was painful and ripped at his body like nails sticking out of a board. He could hear the beast continuing to move, and it seemed to be getting closer and closer, still circling and splashing down into the water in the process. Ronnie moved swiftly. He was checking behind him. His left shoulder throbbed with excruciating pain and with a movement in all directions, every once in a while letting loose a 3 to 5 round burst just to keep the beast's attention. He ran past several hogs that had been massacred several days ago, and the stench was hanging in the air, still under the riverbank's vegetation. This intensified the fear level in Ronnie. He never felt this kind of fear, even when he witnessed one of his buddies getting killed in a motorcycle accident that happened practically right in front of him in high school. He could hear the beast moving around him behind him, but he could not see it. The banks of the river on this side were still about 50 to 60 feet above him, and there were spots that he could probably scale if his shoulder wasn't as messed up as it was. But he was sure he didn't want to get caught in a spot that would pin him with no place to go. He could see the chimney stacks of the treatment plant in the distance, maybe a mile or so, and this gave him hope. But this beast was moving with an intense purpose, and there was no room for error in his position and movement. It was running with him. It knew Ronnie was now vulnerable on several levels. It was executing the perfect predator play for the prey. It was hunting. Ronnie was gut-checking himself and powering forward, looking forward to putting his foot on that ramp, and also knowing that the plant is manned 24/7. And today, one of his friends, Kenny, was working the day shift. He just needed to keep putting one foot in front of the other and not yielding to this abomination of nature. Ronnie continued to work his way towards the treatment plant in safety. The beast seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. He continued to unleash 3 to 5 round bursts, but could not confirm any hits to the target. He wondered if Mick would ever forgive him for going in alone. But it was Ronnie's way of handling affairs himself. His pace was laboured, and with will and intent being his only drivers, he was pushing the limits of his endurance on a level which had never been tested. As he was stepping over some large rocks, his foot slipped on the water-covered stones and his leg slid into a crevice. In between the two and his body weight shifting, and snapped both bones in his right lower leg. He screamed, "No! Oh God, no! Fuck! No, God damn it, no!" And he clambered for his CZ and his breathing went off the scale as pain hit his system. He managed to get his hands on his CZ, and the beast took advantage and stepped quickly towards Ronnie. He raised his CZ and pulled the trigger, and the bolt jammed forward. The beast ripped the weapon from Ronnie and broke the sling ring on the weapon as it flew against the riverbank. Ronnie grabbed his pistol, and the beast grabbed the pistol and Ronnie's hands together and crushed his hands around the pistol's grip, breaking at least 13 bones. Ronnie screamed in pain as the vice-like grip of the beast and his bones cracked and popped and separated.
"Who's the fucker now?"
It said in a low grumbling voice. The beast stretched out its hand and with a speed and force jammed its claws and fingers and hand into Ronnie's abdomen. He screamed a primal siren of death as Ronnie was watching the actions of the beast. He grabbed his 10-inch hunting knife and jammed it into the forearm of the beast and twisted the blade. The beast roared at him and smiled.
"So, you still have fight in you. Good. Now die,"
it said in an even lower, grumbling voice. And then, with brutal strength, the beast turned its hand, while remaining inside Ronnie's gut, upwards, and then with a malaise and vicious intent, began very slowly ripping out Ronnie's heart and lungs. Blood shot from Ronnie's mouth.
"I'm going to shit you out over these bottoms for the next 3 days. And then I'm going to pay your brother a visit,"
it said sadistically. Ronnie's last sight of this earth was the beast relishing in his demise. He pulled the knife from the beast's forearm and began stabbing at the beast with all of his might as life ebbed from his body and the screams of absolute defiance grew quiet, and no one but the beast was present to hear him. The knife blade made a tinkling sound as it hit rocks and made a small splash as it slid into the river's muddy water. It took about 2 minutes for the abomination to complete its work. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus, 92 AD. Is our fear of the unknown so commanding that we cannot comprehend that there are things that we do not understand that cause us to blindly allow for dismissal of the evidence of their existence? Or do we choose to allow our perceived superiority to supersede their dominance? Mick, he took his life into his own hands, started an archery shop, and then he started a fitness centre, and both became moderately successful. And Mick was made whole by a loving woman by the name of Tiffany, who made sure that his needs, wants, and desires were fully met. The double lightning bolts, he had them removed, and, as they were no longer present, Mick never felt like something less of a man ever again. He grieved over his brother's disappearance for almost 5 years. He goes down into those bottoms still today, and he looks for anything that might be his brother's. He always goes after it floods, you know. The shifting sediments and junk brush piles can hold many secrets. The strange thing is that 5 others went missing about the same time as Ronnie, and they were never heard of again. Mick still misses his brother from time to time, and recently a boot was discovered and it closely matched the Red Wing boots that his brother was wearing that day. But it is still unconfirmed. Bottoms of the Deep Fork River doesn't give up its secrets easily. Every once in a while, others go missing and are never heard of again. and they vanish into a void of the bottoms of the Deep Fork River, where, on occasion, if you listen closely, you might just hear the lonely siren of the howl in the woods. On the next episode of the Disappearances of the Deep Fork River Bottoms, do we really know what's living beneath our feet? Sure, we can say that there are subways, storm drains, and sewer pipes and caves, but what's deeper, like way down in the earth? What calls the darkness home? And is it always dark? Until next time, when the howls start echoing across the river bottoms in your backyard, you have to wonder, is it a puppy or a doggy?
Sleep tight.
It's said in a low, grumbling voice. Wow. Another one. Wow. Absolutely chest-pounding stuff there, Ed. Thank you ever so much, brother. Absolutely awesome series, this one. I think even possibly you might have topped your Googway Siege storyline there, Ed. This is coming together as just a magical piece. Absolutely chilling, mysterious. Ticks all of my boxes. Thank you ever so much. As ever, guys and girls, you know the drill. Please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag Team Fear? Of course, as always, guys, I hope you're all well and happy, keeping fit and focused, and above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.